I have a lot of new subscribers lately. That's awesome. Welcome. And if you're new here, you might not actually understand I am legitimately a professor of French. If you're new here, you might not also know that I learned French primarily because of French rap music. Now, of course, I love the culture, the food, the cinema, the literature, all that stuff. But it was really this album. It was discovering this album by chance, by I Am. I have an entire video about it, that I decided to study French and learn it completely fluently and move to Marseille after I graduated college. So I have a whole playlist. I'll include it in the description. I'll include it at the end if you want to learn more about French rap. But beyond just learning about it, I realized I could teach it. So for well over a decade now, I've taught a class at the college where I teach. I do not represent them, but I do teach there on French rap music. And what's happened to me is, as I've been doing this whole channel's been about fighting mid-20s music death, about fighting the instinct to say, everything was better back in the 90s. Everything was better before, when I was younger. And so I've been doing that with English music in English, but when it comes to French hip-hop, I've just been like, I don't know, it's not good anymore. And obviously that can't be true. So I'm going to be, in preparation for this new class, and in recognition of France's excellence in football, in soccer, and each time they progress to the next round, I'm going to make a new video about a French rap album. Can I do these things together to celebrate the fact that French rap is not dead, it has just changed. Much like American rap is not dead, it just changed. So I'm going to be talking about the album E-Trap by TH. Not the easiest for the search engine optimization, but just look up E-Trap and you should find the album. Now, if you don't know anything about French rap, allow me to summarize it very quickly, both the rise and my perceived fall. It is the second country in the world in terms of hip-hop creation, innovation, and consumption. It serves the function of being the voice of the voiceless, largely children of immigrants or first-generation immigrants from usually former French colonies who've moved into French urban spaces, usually placed into very large, somewhat inhuman public housing in the suburbs and the outskirts of cities. There are a few particular things about French hip-hop that varies from American hip-hop. They stayed true to the original belief of MCing, DJing, graffiti, and b-boying much longer than the Americans did. They really, I would say, have a better, as a hip-hop culture, they are more faithful to the idea of the four elements as opposed to just the two that make the most money. However, the other thing that they do that Americans don't do is that they add more of an African influence, both in terms of slang and in terms of musical styles, because their connection to Africa is like a question of years or decades, not a question of centuries, as it is in America. But around the 20th century, I don't know. It seemed to me like everything got a lot less authentic. All of a sudden start to be more commercial, a lot more about crime and guns, sort of more of the right-wing values of American free market capitalism that dominate gangster rap and dominate American mainstream rap, and moving away from the more socialist values that dominated rap in the early days in America and in France, less about inequality and racism, more about crime and guns and selling coke, and so much more auto-tune, and so many more sing-songy songs. And then just so much influence from reggaeton and sort of international disco-y influences, not Africa or America. And then we had all these rappers with these names. You know how old American dudes would be like, why is everyone Lil this and Lil that? Back in my day, we had I'm gonna give you a list of rappers that have three-letter names, okay? There's a period of time where French rappers name themselves airports. PNL, SCH, JUL, GLG, SDM, KHA, MHD. All those are actual rappers. The last one, MHD, is one of my favorites. He actually created a genre called Afro Trap. Amazing. I might do a video about that. So, I don't know. I'm just I turn on the French radio, or I find out the hottest hits, and it's and here's the song by and and the song is like, and I just became an old man. But fortunately, we have Teash, who's way better than the other two because he doesn't have than the rest of those because he doesn't have 3 letters. He has 2 letters, T and H. And what a ballsy name to name yourself if you are French. Do you know that the letters TH in French are unpronounceable? That's why there's the joke about the French saying, the cat is very fine. Okay, the reason they can't say the is because the is a very difficult thing to say for most languages, but especially for French. The, okay? And don't go making fun of them. They have things that we can't pronounce either, okay? If you want to say above and below in French, it's au-dessous, au-dessus. Au-dessous, au-dessous. Okay? That's the level of complexity there. If you can't hear the difference, you can't hear the difference. So that's TH. He calls himself Teash. I don't know his real name. I don't know his origin. It's somewhere, I know where he's from in France. I think he has some African origins. I haven't been able to place him down. He's a fairly mysterious figure. Now, when I say he's from France, maybe I'll say he's from Paris. And if I say he's from Paris, let me give you an example of what that's like if you say that, like what that means to a French person hearing where they're from. Okay? Jay-Z is from Manhattan. Wu-Tang Clan is from Queens. Kendrick Lamar hails from the famous part of Los Angeles called Beverly Hills. Parisian rappers are not Parisian rappers. Parisian rappers come from a certain part of Paris. There's many different parts of Paris they can come from. They can come from the northern suburbs, the western suburbs, sometimes from the eastern suburbs, rarely from the southern suburbs. They can come from parts within the city, but in general, you identify who a French rapper is by where they are from. Okay, so that's why we don't say Jay-Z is from Manhattan. He's from Brooklyn, and his Brooklynness is part of his art. This guy, Teash, is from Bondy. Now, who's the most famous French person in the world? If you're American, you're just not going to have an answer. You're just going to be like, isn't their president like Macaroon? No, I'm just kidding. Americans don't even know that much. They would probably say Napoleon, and you'd have to tell them that Napoleon's not alive, okay? But if you're from the rest of the world, you'd immediately say Kylian Mbappe, okay? He's the most famous footballer. I mean, he's the best footballer in the world right now. He turned down a contract for $700 million for 1 year. He's that kind of guy, okay? And he's the most famous French person in the world, and he's from the same place as Teash. And I think that's fascinating. It shows the strength of sports, the strength of music to help people who do not have visibility otherwise, who are often forgotten, who are often marginalized, who come from marginalized histories, come from marginalized places, to impose their existence on the world. And how can you do that? Well, unfortunately, other methods of attaining power are not as accessible. So these ways of accessing influence and visibility are the easiest. And that's what we're doing now. We're talking about, because Kylian Mbappe is so good, even if he has a broken nose, we'll have to see about that. It's fun to see like what a forgotten part of the City of Lights. The kind of parts, and I swear to God, you can look it up. Fox News said it's in the no-go zone. You're not supposed to go there. You're not supposed to go there because there's too many people we don't want to see when we go to Paris. Okay? So that's who we're talking about today. We're talking about just another dude off the streets of Bondy who is trying to do something interesting. Now, what I like about Teash, even though the album's called E-Trap, like, I thought it was just going to be like a trap album, just like, and I sell ounces, and I sell pounds, and I sell kilos, and I'm a dealer, and I've got AKs, and there's some of that. He is a dealer, that is his personality, he does talk about guns, but the main thing that he does is he drowns this project in what he calls the macabre. The macabre, okay? Which just means like a personalized representation of death, like a fixation on death. We can also call it existential, okay? He's really using the French playbook of questioning the nature of existence, the absurdity of existence. Why are we here? What are we doing? How silly and pointless and fleeting is life? I swear to God that's in this music. So if you want to hear rap music that really hits hard with, cool street tales of growing up on the streets and having to outsmart the police and spitting on judges and moving weight, and you also want to question the nature of existence and whether or not we're not all just dust, welcome to some of the best French rap that's out right now. I'm going to give you an example of 3 songs, and then I'm going to go through the rest of the album super quickly. The album begins with a track called A Paname, c'est la course. For reasons which I'm not going to get into now, Paname, like Panama, is another word for Paris. And this song is how the album opens, and it sets this great mournful, macabre tone. Gentle pianos going backwards, drums and percussion, but it's all about this voice that starts off calm and then gets louder and louder until he's like yelling and losing control at the inequality that surrounds him. Chaque acte a ses conséquences, et j'ai mis les gants pour pas laisser d'empreinte. Okay, so every act has its consequences. I'm translating in real time. I put on gloves to not leave fingerprints. Your life, one day, you should give it up. Choose well the road that you take. The roots of the tree need to drink so that the birds can take refuge there. Humanitarian aid is blocked at the border. The drugs do not pass by the refugees. Soon it will be the Olympics. Okay? It's the Olympics in Paris this year. Don't go. Don't go to Paris this year. Go to Paris every other year. Don't go this year. But you see, he's talking about all these sort of like poetic expressions about like trees and birds and humanitarian aid and the need for refugees and the need for immigration and the pointlessness of life, and then tags it with this little thing about the Olympics, which nobody in Paris wants. Nobody in France wants it. A couple people want it, corporations, and that's it. And then we get to track 2, which is this is my favorite song. Hopefully I can find a link to this song, okay? It's called AB KA That's short for Abdul Karim. More of a mournful piano song, this very quick loop, this nice blared out bass, and his voice. He just keeps repeating these same lines over again. Capuché dans toute l'option, te reconnu Abdul Karim, j'ai que de la haine dans les yeux quand je regarde le monde. He just keeps on going. He repeats these lines, I think, 6 times. So, hooded up in all cases. You recognized Abdul Karim. That might be his real name, okay? Or it might be a name of a friend of his. Abdul Karim is a very, very, very French name. Do you understand me? Okay? I taught in a French high school, and I had more Abduls and Mohammeds than I had Pierre and Jean, okay? Because that's the reality of France. It's a very cosmopolitan country, okay? But obviously it's a name which indicates coming recently from Africa, right? I only have hatred in my eyes when I look at the world. Some of my brothers do not eat to the point of satiation. I'm translating awkwardly here. Some of my brothers don't eat enough, and others find that normal. In room 13 of the courthouse, I insulted the judge straight to his face. So he repeats these lines over and over again. And just what you have to do is you just have to get yourself into this song, okay? I don't give a shit you don't speak French. I just told you what the lyrics mean, okay? Feel the pain that he's expressing. The way he's expressing this pain and this anger and this rage with just the flattest affect. Just like about the hatred you have towards the world and insulting the judge and being here and just feeling the weight of everything just pushing down on you. This is what rap music can do so unbelievably well with all of its words and all of its power and its poetic capacity. It's just beautiful. And then later he talks about how the Americans lied. Americans are not the good guys in this album, or in most of the world. I'm going to jump ahead to probably my favorite track on the album. I can't tell I like this album so much, called Isuzu. Like Isuzu, the car brand. I think it was a Redman lyric. Isuzu trucks Tell me in the comments, what's that song? This is probably the best beat on the album. It's weird and cool. It's got these little piano hits, this little bell ringing. And then it features another great of French rap who I have not paid enough attention to, Alpha One. I might end up talking about Alpha One in a video depending on how far France goes in the Euros here. Because his style is super cool and he's calm and he's kind of funny. And all these lyrics are just about cars. So you think, oh, it's a rap song about cars. Oh, it's going to be about Maybachs and BMWs and Ferraris. No. Je suis au bled dans le Isuzu, RAV4 Touareg, mes petits joujoux, je crée un truc dans le SUV, technique comme quand Zizou joue. Lots of fun playing here with words here, but what he's talking about is the bled, which is the home country. So I think he's from the Ivory Coast originally. I think, if I remember correctly. And, there's certain cars that you see in Africa that you see a lot. It's just like a part of the landscape. I don't know exactly how it works. My son explained it to me once, like why there's so many specific kinds of trucks in specific parts of Africa. But this is like a very evocative landscape that he's giving of Africa. The idea of just being in an Isuzu in the home country is something which so many people who listen to it, who have this life experience, it's connecting them right there. I'm writing something in the SUV technique like when Zizou plays. Talking about Zinedine Zidan, the true GOAT, the true greatest soccer player of all time. 10 times better than Messi. 10 million times better than Phil Foden or Maradona. Okay? And that's me. And I'm a world expert. Anyways, he's my favorite player. It doesn't matter if he's the best. He did win the Euros in 2000, though. But what's great, though, is the way he's playing with the language. Technique comme quand Zizou joue. Zizou playing. Zidan, that's his nickname. The person who raps the best is still in the testicles of the Don, like of the chief, like of the king. Like daron is an Arabic term which refers to like a important person, essentially saying that the person who's going to be the best rapper hasn't existed. And then later he makes reference to talking about carbon, right? He's talking about like carbon, which is like not carbon, coal. He's talking about coal. About like coal and how it's used, and that's actually one of the primary exports in this country. And it's talking, so he's able to talk about issues of exploitation of Africa, while at the same time just delivering sick rhymes. And then Teash comes in. He's maybe more energetic here than normal. He talks about the protests in Paris. About a crisis not far from the Champ de Mars, all the people wearing the yellow vests and talking about being optimistic. And then he says my favorite lyrics in English. Mini Cooper, couleur stormtrooper. Mini Cooper, the color of a stormtrooper. Try saying that at home, would you? Mini Cooper, the color of a stormtrooper. I don't listen to humans. They're liars. I'm going to go through the rest of the album now much quicker. Emotion is the third track on the album. More mournful beats, talking about fame and life, talking about self-analysis, talking about pride and ego and the sound of metal. That's what kills humans. My universe is a world filled with robots and new aerodynamic cars. He has like legitimate nausea, legitimate Sartrean nausea. Like he sees the world in the way that it is and the technology that surrounds him, and he's just incapable of experiencing and being connected to the world, which is why he's weirdly obsessed with the atomic bomb. Who's thinking about the atomic bomb? He is. And then he talks about the time I'm talking to you, I'm on my way across the Atlantic, how many cadavers are in the ocean, but I would just be one more in the middle of that ocean, the drop of water that made the glass overflow. It's an expression in French, obviously talking about the middle passage. Fascinating. Blue Storm, next track, talking about like hard drugs and soft drugs. In the long term, it's the same effect. Okay, that's a cool idea here. Going on and on, talking about this, it is, we are the Quartier de France. We are the neighborhoods of France. And he talks about the 93, where he's from. Then there's a song called Ocho Cinco, which I was like, uh-oh, here comes like a reggaeton song, but it's not. He means Ocho Cinco as in Chad Ocho Cinco Johnson, the wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals. How the hell do French people know who Chad Ocho Cinco is? That's weird as hell. Why would a French person know? Even a very famous, why would a French person even know who Tom Brady is? Anyways, he does. And he actually makes an American football reference here. It's kind of slightly auto-tuned. It's maybe a little bit of a nod to pop rap. I don't know. I mean, a lot of references to name brands here. You know, Ferrari Enzo, Touton Kenzo. So in the same, you know, it's screw it. I'm not going to go faster. You're here to hear me talk. I need to express my appreciation for this. In French, there is a kind of inverted slang where you switch around syllables. It's called Verlon. Not all of France, mostly outside of Paris. Don't do that. Don't bring that to Marseille. They'll kick your ass. So LVMH is short for the richest French company, Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, the luxury goods brand. So that he says MHLV. So he's actually taking the name of the super corporation and turning that into Verlon. So he's talking about Ferraris, he's talking about Kenzo clothes, he's talking about Louis Vuitton Moet and Hennessy, and then in the same song he says this. L'amour, les êtres humains. À la fin, c'est poussière. 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 Love. Human beings. At the end, it is dust. 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 This guy's awesome. This is what I love about French rap. Okay? There's some awesome Sartre references in this album as well. Délinquance juvenile, juvenile delinquents, kind of like rapping kind of sleepily here. I really enjoy, like, he talks about juvenile delinquents, toutes mes gardes à vue prolongées. So, like, talking about how all the time that he's been put in as a juvenile delinquent, they've extended his stay. The French ghettos for us have very few exits. And then he actually makes a direct reference to Mbappe. And then a different rapper comes in, Stavo, who has this great start and stop flow. Another person I should probably study. It's not all just, you know? And then we get to Isuzu. I already talked about that. Pilule, backward sounds. It's about, like, very introspective. 2 more and I'm done. I'm just a pawn. He talks again about the bomb. Energizing Can is the next song. Canette énergisante. Gentle kind of synth song. This one basically has like the bed springs, from Jersey club music. It has that. It's kind of unexpected, honestly never mind style here. He also makes reference to boisson énergisante, je coupe l'absolu. So he's talking about having an energy drink, which he's cutting with vodka, which reminds me of one of my favorite songs from what I consider to be the bad time in French rap, Red Bull et Vodka by La Fouine, which if you've never heard, he says, Red Bull et Vodka, Red Bull et Vodka, Red Bull et Vodka, about 70 times in a row, and it slaps so hard. So check out that song. I'll include a link to that too, by La Fouine. Le Terrain is this weird rhythm, almost maybe Latin inspired, but it's like super bizarre. It's all over the place. And then he has this like, La go, elle est douce, 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 douce. Dans 9 mois, elle pousse, 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 pousse. Bientôt les Yankees, tous, 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 tous. J'ai là-bas qui pousse, 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 pousse. So he's playing around with words, with language. He's saying, the chick is sweet. In 9 months, she will push. Pretty soon the clients, which he says in a Verlon, will cough because I've got the weed that goes hard, 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 hard. Happiness for some makes the unhappiness for some makes the happiness of others. Is this great crunchy drum line. This whole album's only like 30 minutes long, but it's so great. Talks, Jesus Christ. I'm telling you, man, women, non-binary them, I'm telling you all, this album is really far out. It's really packed. There are as many humans as bicycles in the Seine. If you don't know, 1961, October 17th, I believe it was, Papon, who was the commissioner of police and the same guy who put all the Jews on the train to get sent to the extermination camps, authorized murdering peaceful protesters by drowning them in the Seine. Okay, they're Algerians who are protesting the Algerian War, which is to say the holding on to the colony against the wishes of those who wanted to free the colony of French control. So this is like a French moment. My dad was there. It's weird. It's a weird story. I've told it on other videos. He was there. He didn't know he was there, but he was there in Paris, walking along the Seine when this happened. Doesn't matter. But Vélib is like the free bicycles, so like what a weird combination, like bringing up this moment of national trauma, which France recognized in like 2018, and it happened in 1961. So there's as many rented bicycles in the Seine as there are humans, like human corpses. So like one implies a sort of loss of trust, and it's just great. White phosphorus is an American thing. Okay, so now we're talking about Palestine. I presume we're talking about the fact that white phosphorus probably should be considered a war crime or chemical weapon, and it's being dropped, according to most reputable sources, on the citizens of Gaza. According to most reputable sources, most of them are largely innocent and are dying this terrible, terrible, terrible death, and the source of those bombs are potentially American. Okay? How does that... that ties in again. I run after my dreams, not after people. The dream of Martin had trouble realizing Nelson would take 20 years in hard labor, gas, money, women, the nerves of war. Just going on and on and on, this very politically engaged stuff, while still managing to be also very kind of tough and street guy here. The album ends with kind of a weird jazzy song called the 12 Labors of Hercules. It's not really super clear on what it's about, but whatever. It's just such a great album. So voila, ça y est. So check it out. If you want to listen to some great French hip-hop music, you can't go wrong with Théâtre. Or as they would call him in French, Z. There's the camera.